Restart Episode 6, A Bedtime Story. At first, there was nothing. No sound, no light, no breath. Then, slowly, like ripples spreading across still water, his senses began to return. A faint hum reached him first, the low murmur of voices somewhere beyond his grasp. Warmth followed, sunlight pressing gently against his skin. He caught the scent of lavender oil and polished marble, underscored by the distant crackle of a hearth. Prince Alarion's was laid upon his bed, and above him a green and blue glow pulsed slowly, deliberately, as though it were a living heart. The light strengthened with each rhythm, steady at first, then growing in power. His body felt impossibly heavy, as if he had been carved from stone. The mattress sank beneath him, bowing under a weight that did not belong to flesh alone. Then, inch by inch, the pressure eased. The heaviness began to drain away, and the bed rose with it, lifting as though the burden placed upon it was being unmade. The spell of stasis was unraveling. One heartbeat, then another. Energy swirled and thinned, the glow dimming as it dispersed into the air. With each passing moment, the prince felt lighter, closer to himself once more. Then came a final surge, a brief blinding flash of power. And it was over. Prince Alarion was released from the Archmage's spell, which had safely danced with the very elements of this world, and left him mostly unscathed. Prince Alarion's eyes fluttered open, the world swimming into focus in fractured pieces, the gleam of gold trim along the ceiling, the soft canopy draped above his bed, the familiar crest of Valoria etched into the base of the chandelier. His consciousness snapped into place like a blade locking into its sheath. He blinked several times, grounding himself. What a strange feeling, he thought hazily. Just moments ago, I was standing in the early light of dawn with my troops. The memory splintered, sunlight flashing across armor, the scent of morning dew, the Archmage's voice whispering a spell, and then nothing rushed in to claim the space it left behind. "Ow!" he groaned, lifting a hand to his face. Pain flared through his jaw, dull and insistent, as though he had been struck by a hammer. "Why does my face hurt so bad?" he muttered, wincing as he rubbed the tender spot. From somewhere nearby came a dry, unimpressed voice. "That would be because you wrecked half the palace," his younger brother, Prince Alarion, said under his breath. Prince Alarion turned his head sharply toward the sound, blinking away the last of the haze. His gaze found his mother first, seated in a high-backed chair beside the bed. The Empress looked worn but unbroken, her posture regal even in exhaustion. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap, though the whiteness of her knuckles betrayed how tightly she held them. On his other side, Princess Seraphine slept with her head resting against the edge of the mattress. A few loose strands of her silver-blonde hair caught the sunlight, rising and falling with each steady breath. Alarion stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed in a practiced show of indifference. The smirk came easily, but it didn't reach his eyes. Beneath the humor lingered something raw and unguarded. The same worry lived in their mother's gaze, and in the way Seraphine's hand still rested near Alarion's arm, as though she had fallen asleep keeping vigil. For a long moment, Alarion simply stared. The haze of stasis clung to his thoughts like thinning mist, but the weight of the room, the silence, the tension wound tight as a drawn bowstring, told him everything his memory could not. He swallowed, his throat dry, his voice rough. "Mother, what happened?" The Empress looked up, relief flickering across her face before she mastered it behind calm composure. "You're awake," she said softly. "Thank the light." She rose from her chair, smoothing her gown with deliberate grace, then stopped. In the next breath, she crossed the distance with the speed of a mother and wrapped her arms around her son. "You've been asleep for nearly a day, my son," she said, holding him tightly. "We have been so worried." Alarion frowned as the words settled in. "A day?" He shifted, pushing himself upright. He paused, brow furrowing as he searched his memory. The Archmage. He said something, soft, almost like a lullaby, and then I felt strange, cold and warm at the same time. It wrapped around me like being pulled through water and fire all at once. He rubbed his temples, confusion shadowing his face. Then nothing. Just darkness. And now I'm here. Kalian shifted at the foot of the bed, glancing briefly at their mother before answering. "Well, a lot happened while you were sleeping." The Empress shot him a sharp look. "Kalian." He raised his hands in mock surrender but couldn't resist adding, "What? It's true. Falling out of the sky tends to make an impression, especially when you crash into the palace and destroy half of it." Alarion blinked. "Crashing into... What are you talking about?" The Empress cut in smoothly before Kalian could elaborate. "Enough. Go fetch your father." Kalian's mouth curved into a lopsided grin, but he didn't argue. He stepped forward and pulled Alarion into a brief, fierce embrace, an uncharacteristically open display of affection. "I'm glad you're home," he murmured, however brief or explosive. Breaking away, Kalian jogged toward the door. As he opened it, he began singing under his breath, a tune he had picked up recently. His voice echoed down the corridor, something about Paraxis burning bright and blue, fading as he ran. Alarion's frown deepened. "I don't remember falling. The Archmage cast the spell, and then... nothing." He hesitated. Was Paraxis hurt? The Empress paused, just a heartbeat too long. "Paraxis is being tended to," she said at last. "The Archmage has also been healed and is resting. Paraxis crashed into the east wing and caused significant damage." Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her. There was fear there, and something more. "Was anyone hurt?" Alarion asked, his voice low with concern and regret. "Hurt, yes," the Empress replied, "but nothing our healers could not mend." A faint, weary smile touched her lips. "Though you did give me the unexpected sight of Kalian, the hero of Valoria, bare-chested, sword in hand." She exhaled softly, then continued, her tone turning more composed. "Paraxis tore through entire sections of the palace. He has not yet awakened, and he gave the guards quite a fright." Her gaze locked onto her son, unyielding now. "What was so important that you acted so recklessly?" she asked. "You endangered your own life and used experimental magic." Alarion met her eyes, studying her expression, sensing the weight beneath her words. "Mother," he said quietly, "there is an ancient evil within our borders. No, not just an ancient evil, the evil of legend." She smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. Ancient evils. Alarion drew a slow breath before continuing. "We rode for 7 days and 7 nights. On the 8th day, we saved a distant Valorian village from a goblin attack. A goblin attack." Disbelief edged his voice. "Goblins have not been seen in our lands for centuries." He stared upward, exhaustion heavy in his limbs. We destroyed what was likely an initial horde, over 1,000 strong, and when the battle ended, a man clad in living darkness appeared. He fought and defeated the Dawn Guard. His gaze dropped to the bed beneath his hands. Our blows did nothing. Our strikes meant nothing. Then, without warning, he simply stopped and vanished. Alarion swallowed. I have never seen teleportation magic like that before. It was as if a ghost slipped out of the world in plain view. The Empress regarded him for a moment, her expression cool and assessing. It was time to tell the prince everything. Do you know why I stopped Kalian from continuing? She asked. Alarion shook his head. Because he would have dramatized it, she said. And this deserves accuracy, not theatrics. She folded her hands at her waist. The Archmage arrived with Paraxis in a magnificent explosion, she continued. 3 broken ribs, 1 punctured lung. His left arm shattered from the elbow down, an open fracture. Internal bleeding that took our best healers hours to stabilize. Alarion's breath caught. He survived only because of sheer will and trying to keep you safe, she said. Alarion swallowed. I didn't know it was that bad. No, she agreed. You were unconscious. She turned slightly, gaze drifting toward the tall windows where the damaged wing of the palace still lay shrouded in scaffolding. Paraxis was worse. Alarion's head snapped up. His wing membrane was torn nearly in half, the Empress said. Bone fractures along the shoulder ridge. Severe internal trauma. He bled enough that we feared he would not wake at all. Her voice hardened, not with anger, but with truth. Dragons heal, she said. Yes, slowly, painfully, and only if they survive the first hours. Alarion clenched his fists beneath the blanket. Is he? He lives, she said, cutting in. But he required continuous healing for nearly half a day. 4 circles of mages. 2 collapsed from exhaustion. 1 may never cast at the same strength again, just to keep the dragon from passing. We are lucky that a servant loyal to the family gave up a power core to safely revive our dragon champion. This is a priceless artifact, a family heirloom. Silence pressed down between them. At dawn, the Empress went on, I stood in a hall filled with blood, broken stone, and healers arguing over which life to save first, and we had to choose. She turned back to him, eyes sharp, unwavering. This is what your bravery costs, she said. Not in theory, in bodies, in shattered bones, in people who trusted your judgment. Alarion lifted his gaze, guilt plain on his face, but there was no defensiveness in him. I would do it again, he said quietly. Not the fall, not the damage, but I would still face it. The Empress studied him for a long moment. Good, she said at last, because if you had hesitated, I would question whether you were fit to lead. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. But next time, she added, you return alive. You return with those who followed you, and you do not force your mother to learn battlefield triage inside her own palace. A pause. Then dryly, princes are much more expensive to replace than palace stones. Princes are irreplaceable. That earned a faint, breathless laugh from him, gone almost as quickly as it came. She rested her hand briefly on his shoulder. You are brave, she said. Now learn to be careful. Legends do not care how noble your intentions are. She straightened, already turning toward the future. The Empress held her son's gaze, studying him the way she had when he was a boy, searching not for weakness, but for truth. Concern sharpened her eyes, yet beneath it lay something else. Curiosity, alive and unmistakable. "Son," she said, measured and steady, "you are the bravest and most loyal man I know. Well, besides your father." A faint smile touched her lips before fading. "If you say you faced the enemy of legend, then I believe you. And because I believe you, we must speak with your father at once." Alarion inclined his head, relief and urgency mingling in his expression. "For this very reason, I returned with all haste," he said. "I sought father's counsel and hoped to speak with Mercurius. I wished to draw wisdom from our greatest sage, and from a hero who once bore Valoria on his shoulders." The Empress placed a hand at his back, her touch grounding. "Then let us not delay." They turned to leave the chamber together, their steps quiet against the stone floor. Behind them, a soft movement broke the stillness. The princess stirred. She shifted above the blankets, strands of dark hair fallen across her face, and blinked blearily at the empty room. Her brow furrowed as she pushed herself up on one elbow, eyes roaming from the doorway to the tall windows and back again. "Where is everyone?" she murmured to no one at all. She brushed the hair from her eyes, squinting as if the answer might be hiding in the shadows. "What did I miss?" The silence offered no reply. The walk to the Emperor's study carried a quiet weight. Stone corridors stretched long and echoing, lit by tall windows that spilled pale light across banners of old victories. Alarion walked beside his mother, matching her measured pace. Neither spoke. There were moments when words only dulled what needed to remain sharp. The guards opened the doors without announcement. The Empress and her son, High Prince Alarion, were escorted into the personal study of the Emperor. The room spoke of wealth and opulence, but not excess. Fine chairs carved from the richest woods, polished stone, and an elegance that reflected the taste of a man who valued refinement over indulgence. At the far end of the chamber, the Emperor stood in warm conversation with two men. He turned, and the gravity of rule slipped easily into something far more human. "Ah, good morning," he said, then added with a smirk, "And good afternoon, my son." Before Alarion could answer, the Emperor waved the two men aside and closed the distance between them in a few long strides. He grasped his son in a firm embrace, lifting him momentarily from the ground. "What a fright you gave our empire today," he said, laughter rumbling in his chest, "coming crashing down from the stars." He set Alarion back on his feet, hands lingering at his shoulders as though confirming he was real. Then he turned and gestured toward the others. "I believe you know these two very well. Denzel is the regent of knowledge, and Wilshire the regent of war." Both men brought their arms across their chests and bowed their heads in greeting. Denzel Arbor, regent of knowledge, carried himself with the quiet solidity of a man accustomed to bearing weight. He was of medium height, compact and powerfully built, thick through the shoulders and chest, his short, firm neck setting his head squarely upon a body that seemed dense and immovable. His dark brown skin was rich and even, marked by fine lines that spoke of age without fragility. A close cut of mostly gray hair and a neatly trimmed beard sharpened the broad structure of his face. His deep-set eyes regarded Alarion with a gaze that had once examined students and doctrines alike, missing little and forgiving even less. Beside him stood Wilshire Platinum, regent of war, his contrast immediate. Tall and narrowly built, he seemed drawn upward rather than outward, all angles and length. His face was long and angular, defined by high cheekbones and a sharp, prominent nose. Dark eyes watched from beneath expressive brows, alert even at rest. His hair fell in loose, dark waves, slightly disordered, and when he moved it was with economical ease, long limbs accentuating his height. Where Denzel radiated mass and certainty, Wilshire carried precision and edge. Alarion smiled. "Ha! I know these too well, my emperor, for they are two of the finest men in all the empire." Both regents accepted the praise with faint smiles, until Alarion finished. "Or so they have generously paid me in gold to say." The emperor laughed and glanced between them. "Oh? They also pay you in gold bribes." Both men scoffed at once, laughter breaking through the formality. "You know we don't bother to shower you with gold," Denzel said. "If anything, you should be paying us." Wilshire added dryly, "Knowledge and war are expensive habits." The warmth lingered for a moment longer than protocol allowed, then faded naturally, leaving something steadier behind. Alarion straightened and bowed his head low. "Father," he said, his voice earnest and clear, "I bring you distressing news of the borders." He told them everything: the goblin incursion, the scale of it, the enemy that should not have been there, and yet was. He spared no detail, softened nothing, and when he finished, silence settled over the room so completely it felt alive. Even breath seemed loud. The quiet was so deep, the prince could hear his own heartbeat, steady but insistent. At last, the emperor spoke. "I cannot believe this news," he said slowly. "Had it come from any other mouth, I would have laughed it off and sent the speaker away as a madman, someone lost to stories and craziness." He looked directly at his son, but it did not come from another mouth. The empress stepped forward and took her husband's hand, intertwined their fingers. "Mary Bright could be the least of our worries. He could be serving someone or something quite darker than any legend." The emperor turned to look at his wife, and then back at his son. The weight of what was spoken was laid out for everyone to slowly digest. The archmage sustained heavy injuries: 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung. His left arm shattered, open fractures, internal bleeding that took hours to contain. Alarion's jaw tightened. "And Paraxis," he continued softly, "was worse." The emperor's expression darkened, and he spoke. "Dragons do not heal as men do," he said. "Their blood is not merely blood. Their bones are not merely bone." He gestured to his arm as he spoke, patting it lightly. "They are creatures saturated with time itself, with ancient magic accumulated across centuries. Healing spells do not enter them as they enter us. The majority of casted magic is absorbed, rendered useless." Wilshire folded his long arms and spoke. "You could pour a river of mana into a dragon and still watch it bleed." "To heal such a being," the emperor continued, "requires strong magic, even relics, cores of ancient beasts, power dense enough to resist absorption and force regeneration." Alarion turned toward Denzel, understanding dawning on his face. Denzel usually used a family heirloom, an ancient walking staff with a light blue power core at its hilt. The same walking staff from him was devoid of the light that once was contained within. "I gave them my family's core," Denzel said simply. The heart of an ancient beast my line has guarded for generations. It was time. Alarion stared at him. That core was irreplaceable. So is Peraxis, Denzel replied without hesitation. The Emperor placed a hand on Alarion's shoulder. Without that core, he said, the dragon would not have survived the night. The Emperor faced his son fully now. You rode into legend without hesitation, he said. That courage will shape this realm. His voice softened. But when you fall, others fall with you. Dragons, archmages, kingdoms. The prince met his gaze, unflinching. Then I will stand, he said, and I will learn. The Emperor studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. Well spoken, he said. Then we do not hide behind doubt. The Empress stepped forward. Our son asks that we go together to the solar heart, she said, to seek counsel from the reflections of Luminar, to strip illusion from truth. The Emperor tightened his grip on her hand. Yes, he said. If an evil legend has returned, then Valoria will face it with open eyes. He looked back at his son, pride, worry, and resolve entwined. You have done well, he said quietly. Now we prepare to do better.